good afternoon, and welcome to the session on Java on mobile. Before I start the typical statistical questions, just for my information, who in this room is or considers himself an Android developer, which means you created an Android application once, okay? And who is an iOS developer? Okay. And who has experience with JavaFX? Great. And who is more a Java Enterprise developer? That's good. Because although the session is called Java on mobile, and we focus on mobile, I'll try to explain why Java on mobile is important for enterprise developers and why it's a good thing for enterprise developers, and how you can connect your existing enterprise application to mobile applications. So next time you feel the pressure from your management, you create a website, and then your management says, I want to run this on my iPhone as well. I will tell you what to answer. So first of all, Java on mobile, it is working. I showed this at Java 1 last year, how you can easily write a Java application and run it on iOS and on Android. So I will briefly show how to do it, but we're not going to spend too much time on showing how exactly it is done, because it's done by plugins for you. So you can now create a Java application with your favorite IDE and test it on desktop, and then run it on Android or iOS devices and upload it to the AppStore or the PlayStore. It's already been done, so the whole cycle works and is proven. What I will demo now is I'll use my favorite IDE, and I will use the Gluon plugin and show how you can create this simple Java application and run it on desktop, and then we will deploy it to the iPad. The second part of the survey, who is using NetBeans here? The big majority. Who is using Eclipse? Also many people. And who is using IntelliJ? Also many people. Okay, that's great. Is there someone not using any of those IDEs? Okay, that's good. In case you don't use any of these IDEs, you can still use some Gradle tools. But for now, we will explain everything using an IDE. The first challenge of today is now I'm going to switch to NetBeans, and I have to make sure that that is still on the screen. It's going to be there. But that's a bit small anyway, and I don't see it here. So I should try to mirror my screen. Is this readable for you? No. Okay. If you could see my screen, it's very readable. So why don't you all come here and. Okay, now I have to change the resolution probably. I'm not used to work with a Mac. Oh, that's rotation. Does anybody know how to change the scale? Like this? Is that better? Yeah. Okay, now we're going to go with this.
You can always change the font size in NetBeans.
Yeah, that's what I already prepared for. But so that's one of the cool things of NetBeans. You go to Preferences, fonts and colors, and I already changed it to an 18 font. If that's readable, otherwise I will increase it even more. You're okay in the back? Okay, good. So we will create a new project. This is NetBeans. This is with the Gluon plugin. IntelliJ and Eclipse have a Gluon plugin as well. And it's easy to install. Just search for Gluon in the marketplaces, or if you go to the Gluon website, which I will show later, It's explained how to do it. You then go to New Project, and we will create a new Gluon Mobile single view project, which is just a Java client application. We click on Next. We call this project Devox UK 2, because I think I already have a Devox UK 1 for testing. And a very simple basic project is already created for us. This project contains 2 source files, a basic view.java and a Devox UK 2.java. Before I show the source files in more detail, I will first run this project on desktop. So I just click Run, and there you see that we have a mobile application. This looks like an iPhone form factor. It has a button, Change the World, so mark the Hello JavaFX world, and now it says Hello JavaFX Universe. So that's a very simple application. That's the template that you get when you create a Java mobile application. We will next we will show how you can easily run this application on a mobile device, but we first briefly will show some of the code. So the Devox UK 2 is our main application, and it extends mobile application. Mobile application is a class in the Gluon Glisten package. I will come to that later, but it is sort of an enhancement of the standard user interface that you would get with JavaFX. So this is a JavaFX application, but already with some basic style sheet to make it look a bit better on mobile. If you look at the application on desktop, you see that this resembles a bit the typical iOS or Android applications. In this application, we define a view, in this case a basic view, and by default the basic view will be shown. If you look at the basic view, you will see that we use some standard JavaFX controls, like a button, a label, and a VBox. And we create the label, we create the button, we put them in a VBox, and we center the VBox on the screen. So this is the JavaFX way of working. We added some Gluon sugar just to make it look more like Material Design interface, and I will come back to that later. But first of all, I will show how to run this on the iPad mini that I have here. And if you go in NetBeans to, if you click the project and you go to tasks, you will see that, and this is something that the plugin does for you, you will see that you have a task, launch iOS device. And you can click that task. So what the plugin is doing, so this is going to take a while. I will explain why. And while it's taking a while, I can explain what it's doing. The plugin will compile your Java application first to bytecode, and then it will, in this case, use an AOT compiler to compile this application to native Objective-C code. It will bundle it with the required classes, and it will send it to the iPad. So that's what's happening now. When it's sent to the iPad, it will be shown. Unfortunately, when I was preparing, I was using Reflector. Does anyone uses Reflector on Mac for connecting it with the iPad? It's very nice because then you can see what's shown on the iPad is then shown on your screen. So then you don't have to switch devices. But unfortunately, it worked very nice, but here it doesn't work. Good enough, the people from the audio-video came up with a nice solution. So I have a second cable. I have a second cable behind the coffee. And if I now unplug the data cable from the Mac to the iPad and I plug in the second cable, and if nothing goes wrong, and then I click the number 3 button, it will show the iPad. And what you see here is the same application as the one that we had on desktop, but now on the, what do I do with this? Yeah. But now on the iPad. So again, if you click the Change the World button, you will see it changed to Hello FX Universe. So this is very simple. You create an application in your favorite IDE. You click on Launch iOS device, and it's installed on an iOS device. You see here, there's nothing behind this hamburger icon or the search button, but they're there because they're in the standard template.
If attendees can make their way to the sessions, please, that would be much appreciated. We're closing the exhibit hall. Thank you.
That's much appreciated, yeah. So this is now the iPad mini. It works, of course, on the iPhone as well and on the Android devices. First, I have to see. Yeah, I will switch back to the presentation. That was number 4. Well, to the IDE. If we look at the other tasks, we see, for example, Android tasks as well. So we can install the same application on an Android device. That would require an additional cable and an additional HDMI output. So not going to do that. And we can also create an Android release. And for iOS, we can also create a simulator, iPad and iPhone simulator images. So we can not only run it on the iPad and Android, we can also create the applications that you then need to upload to the App Store or the Play Store. So I think that's very easy. Now, I want to know, for who of you is this the first time that you see a Java application running out of the box on an iPad? So that's often that I see that many people don't know yet that you can write Java and run it on the iPad and on Android. So it's still, many people still think, yeah, but Java doesn't run on the iPad. It's as you could see here, it does run. Now, if this still works, with going back to the slides, that's going to be huge. Yeah. Oh, okay. So we show the demo. What's happening now under the hood? I explained while everything was compiling that the Java classes were compiled to native iOS code. And if we did the same on Android, they were not compiled to native Android code because Android is more or less Java. Depending on what the latest court ruling is, it's Java, but not copyrighted Java or stolen APIs or fresh clean room implementations. For developers, it just means it's Java 6 or 7, and you can't use the Java 8 features. So that's the current situation. We use this the class path that's used on Android, which is the Harmony implementation. Does anybody knows what Harmony is? Yeah, probably some people, yeah. So it was an implementation of the Java APIs before OpenJDK was really open. And it is officially deprecated, but still being used in Android. And the compiler that we use to compile the application to iOS is also using those classes. So for now, you have to use Java 6 or 7 APIs. Fortunately, you can use Lambda expressions to, because they are at the compile step, they are converted into inner classes. But that's the current situation. We use JavaFX for the cross-platform UI development. So this is also important to mention. When I say that this is a Java cross-platform application, I mean that this is a Java cross-platform application. This does not mean that you can do the business logic in Java and then the UI in iOS and the Android UI in the Android UI. No, you use JavaFX for creating the user interface, and that same user interface works on desktop and on Android and on iOS. And this is because JavaFX renders directly to the frame buffer. On iOS and on Android, and also on Mac, for example, we use OpenGL or EGL on the embedded devices for doing the rendering. So this is not depending on the Cocoa Touch APIs and so on. And then important, the plugin that we showed, which is a free plugin, does all the magic. So it will compile the classes, make sure that the required dependencies are downloaded, and will package everything into something that you can upload to the stores. You still need to describe the application and make screenshots and so, but that's something you have to do for all mobile applications. Now, what is missing from, if you have a basic JavaFX application, what is then missing before you can really make it a very good enterprise application, a commercial application, or a very slick user interface application? First of all, commercial support is important. It's nice that things work with an open source project, but companies want to have commercial support. There need to be an ecosystem with different companies offering different parts of the puzzle. And also, the JavaFX user interface is nice, but on mobile devices, people have higher expectations. So we need a very modern UI framework on mobile. Enterprise connectivity, and I don't have to explain that because the majority here are enterprise developers, is extremely important. Your mobile application needs to connect to your backend, and preferably with the least rewrite of code as possible. Also, if you change something in your backend, you want it to work immediately on mobile. And you don't want to maintain 3 different code bases for your mobile application. And then, yes, support for Java 8. Who's already using Java 8 here? Okay, who's using Java 9, the early releases? So, for those that are using Java 8, is it addictive? Yeah, probably. Once you're used to using the Streams API and then you have to go back to a platform that doesn't support Streams. It's a pain. So we will now see how we tackle what's missing from the core. First of all, commercial support. When we started working on this is about I think 2.5 years ago. Anyway, so when we were working on it for about 1 year, we got a Duke Choice Award at Java 1 2014 because we ported JavaFX to Android, which means we ported the native layer of JavaFX, the one that does the rendering to the native system, to Android. And that was mainly a spare time project for fun. But companies that wanted to use it, they asked us, how can I get support for it? Will you also support this and this? What's the roadmap? And just as a spare time project, you can't answer these questions. There's no guaranteed commitment. So therefore, we founded Gluon about 1 year ago. And Gluon now funds the open source development of JavaFX ports. So all the code that is required to run JavaFX on mobile is open source. Gluon also provides some commercial products and services, and also some free services. Gluon was awarded the Duke's Choice Award last year at Java 1 2015. And at Gluon, we combine different skills. So this whole chain requires assembly code, UI design, and enterprise development. And there's really an ecosystem now being developed, that is growing in the JavaFX world, and especially in the JavaFX mobile world. So it's great to see that other companies are jumping on this train as well. So when we set a modern mobile UI, as I showed in the code in the NetBeans demo, we use some of the standard JavaFX controls, but we also used some additional controls that made the application look a bit more like a native mobile application. And one part of the Gluon mobile offering is Glisten, which is a framework inspired by the material design specification. It uses it adds some new UI controls on top of the existing JavaFX ones, and it styles existing JavaFX controls with more material design specifications. It supports layered views so that you can add different views on top of each other, for example, a floating action button and so. It has a responsive layout so that your application works both on tablets or mobile devices with different form factors. And it contains lots of built-in animations, which is very handy in JavaFX. I will show a very quick video where we show a number of applications that are created with this framework. And then I will show a quick real-life application, and I will explain some parts of the code. But most important is the Java doc. If you want to work with this, the Java doc is really going to help you learning on how to create mobile design applications. So going to a video is the next challenge. Because I already opened it somewhere else. There, for example. So this is not live, but I'm blamed for doing too much live code. What you see here is the unofficial Java 1 application from last year. So this is created with Glue on Mobile, where you could see the different sessions. You could browse through them. You could select speakers, read their bios, and click on the presentations that they were doing. You could also filter sessions based on different tracks types, where they were located, what kind of sessions that were there. You could search for free text. And you could browse through the speaker list. And all of this, so this is real recording from an iPhone. So this is no Photoshop or so. This is just a performance demo that we run to benchmark. If you look at the top left, you would see 30 frames per second that is rendered here. This is on iOS the default cap. So everything is capped there at 30 frames a second. So you see that the animations are really smooth on Android. This is on iOS, sorry. This is a Notes application that we will show later. So this is the one that I will show real live here. But my colleague who created the video, his trust in me that I can do a good demo is pretty low. So just to make sure that you got the idea, he said, so this is how you use this Notes application to create, to create notes. And we demonstrate some of the sliders, some of the widgets that are part of JavaFX and Glue on Mobile. So, this is the high-level overview. But if you go to the docs.glueonhq.com, you will see much more information on different widgets and on how to apply them. I will now briefly show some code of this Notes application. But before I do that, in order to not have to switch too much between the iPad and the desktop, I will show the next demo on desktop. And who doesn't believe me that I can also show it on the iPad? Even Jim Weaver believes me, so that's a good sign. So this is the Notes application that was shown in the video. As you could see, I can create a new note, new title, and some dummy comment. I submit it. I can delete notes, and this is what the single piece of code I want to show. We have here a navigation drawer in a site pop-up view, and we can go to settings, and we can select different items. This is just a small piece of code that I want to show. So in order to show this, I go to the Notes application, Notes app. Yeah. I'll make this full screen. So this, again, is a mobile application, similar to the mobile application that I showed before. But it's a bit more complex, of course. This is something semi-useful. And so in the init code, you see we create here an object of an instance of class navigation drawer. We assign a header, Glue on Mobile Notes App Plus, and we supply an icon with an avatar style. And then we add some items to that navigation drawer, Notes edition setting. That are the things that you saw, if I still have it. Notes edition settings, that's what you can see here. The header is what you see here. So this is how a navigation drawer is composed. the items are added to the drawer by using drawer.getItems.addAll. Those of you who are familiar with JavaFX will immediately recognize this pattern. That's the way how in JavaFX you add items, widgets, controls to a container. And then we add some listeners. So the selected item property has a listener that will be fired when the user clicks on something, and based on what he clicks, we will do something. We're not going into detail now, but the last thing that I want to explain here is that we will create a side pop-up view of this drawer, and the side pop-up view is the thing that appears if you click on the hamburger icon here. So this is a side pop-up view. You don't have to specify the animations for sliding this in, and on mobile you can also slide this away. It's really cool on mobile. All the swipe gestures and so are supported, and that's how you can add this navigation drawer in the side pop-up view. As I said, the best source for this is the Java doc. So if you go to docs.gluonhq.com and follow a few links, or immediately go to Charm, you will get the Java doc. Navigation drawer is the one that I explained, and our design people are very keen on having very good Java doc. So there's an example which shows how to create this navigation drawer, and it shows how it should look like. So with this documentation, I think most developers, especially JavaFX developers, are able to create applications that look nice. Even I have zero skills when it comes to design, but it's getting harder for me to create ugly applications, because by default the start sheet is there and makes it nicer. I can still manage to create ugly applications, but it's taking a bit more effort. Okay, now back to the presentation. I had a timeline here, and so I know when I had to be where, but the problem is that the time left says it in reverse order. So I have 23 minutes left, so that means 27 minutes in the presentation. Oh, that's nice. That's on track. Good. Next thing, enterprise connectivity. I have a window. Okay, and is there any suggestion on how to close that window? Does this mention close window? Because where is the other one? There? Whoa, what does it mean, mirrored? I selected mirrored, but so PowerPoint does it differently. Well, seriously, I'm using Linux for development. I'm only using Mac for presentations, and even then so they gave me a Mac just because my Linux systems typically don't work with the so HDMI and Linux. If you get that working, contact me. So they gave me this Mac for doing the presentations and for mirroring the iPad. Now that works really well, but not for the development. I shouldn't say this because who's using a Mac for development here? Okay, yeah, congrats. Enterprise connectivity. I think with Logion, so the company that I founded 16 years ago, I think, we are very active in enterprise development, and Logion is one of the founding partners of Gluon. So Gluon actually is a combination of Logion expertise for enterprise development with expertise from the ControlsFX guys who have really expertise in JavaFX and user interfaces and virtual machines and so on. But the enterprise experience is very important here because mobile applications are nice, and I think until a couple of years ago, many people saw mobile applications. Well, that's good for games and for keeping the children happy while you want to sleep in or so. but more and more mobile applications are used for business operations. And typical enterprise applications, they have a website front end. And many customers are asking, can I access this functionality on mobile as well? And then a typical answer of a company is, sure, you can, our website runs on mobile. It's even, how is it called? Mobile friendly? Yeah, mobile friendly probably. But a website isn't mobile friendly. It still requires you to find this tiny scroll bar, and you can't do everything in a website. And people prefer native applications. On my phone, I have probably about 50 apps or so and one web browser. And I only use the web browser when there's no app for it. But it's getting less and less that there are no apps for what I want to do. So the question is then, how can I leverage my existing enterprise application and still and create a native app for it? Now, we already showed that you can do it with Java. But the important thing is, how do I connect then this Java client application with an enterprise application? One of the products of Gluon is called Gluon Connect. It's a BSD license, so you can use that for free in any commercial project without paying us anything. And it allows you to connect your Java application to external web services, to any REST backend system, for example, or to the Gluon Cloud Link, which is a Gluon product that forms the bridge between the mobile world and the enterprise world. I will talk about it later. But so Gluon Connect, which is also bundled in the whole Gluon mobile stack, so you can easily use it if you have the Gluon plugins, is the one that contains the APIs that you use at the client, and those will talk to the enterprise. They will the Gluon Connect APIs that you use on the client they provide the enterprise functionality, but in a mobile-friendly way, because while you typically can run enterprise session beans on a Java client application, it is not recommended because devices are getting more powerful, getting more memory, but then an enterprise application still requires much more resources and makes assumptions like backup, always on connectivity, storage, and so on. So what Gluon Connect does, besides connecting to the backend systems, is integrating it into the JavaFX world. And two very important paradigms in the JavaFX world are the observable and the task. Now I will very briefly talk about observable. The observable class interface in JavaFX is the one that makes sure that if you have data in a data model class, that this data can be coupled to a user interface component. For example, a text field. If we type in some text, the text is in the model class, and it's coupled to what's rendered on the screen. If you type something on the screen, the model is changed immediately. And what Gluon Connect does is take that concept one step further and make sure that if your data is in a remote entity, that remote entity is updated immediately as well. So I'm still in system preferences. Okay. Gluon Cloud Link is the second way you can use when you work with Gluon Connect. And Gluon Cloud Link is the bridge between your devices and different enterprise systems. So Gluon Cloud Link can connect to REST backends, to a Couchbase server, to a JMS backend. We are adding support for Cloud Foundry and for the Oracle Cloud. And we're adding more connectors to make it easy for you. In case you already have an application, who of the enterprise developers has an application that's using REST? Okay, who is using Couchbase? And who is using Pivotal, Cloud Foundry? And so who is using the Oracle Cloud? So, and what are the others using? Amazon, okay. That's good to know. So because we're adding connectors, and we want to know what is popular with the enterprise developers, because those connectors will make it easier for you to couple your enterprise data and enterprise functionality with your mobile application. So yeah, I explained what Glue on Cloud Link is doing. I will give some brief demos. It's going to be tricky because now I have to switch very fast between the device and you know what? I will show the device just to the audience, and the people at home they can believe me. What will this demo do? We will show the Notes application, but so far this Notes application stored all the data locally. It didn't store it in a backend, but we will use Glue on Connect to connect the data from the application, send it to Glue on Cloud Link, and from there send it to the different backend systems. So we already saw the Notes application. A piece of code that we didn't show was where do the notes come from, but the code was like this, but I will immediately explain it, but the operation mode was set to local only, which means that we use Glue on Connect, but we store everything local, so we don't go to a cloud system. We change it to cloud first. What we have to do in order to make use of Glue on Cloud Link is you create an application at the Glue on Cloud Link portal, and that will give you credentials, a key and a secret. You enter those credentials in your code, and you specify the operation mode cloud first. This will make sure that if the mobile device wants some data, it will first check the cloud, and only if it doesn't find anything in the cloud, it will revert to a local copy. You can also have cloud only, so it won't work if you have no cloud connectivity then. And then, in order to get the nodes, we have an observable list. Well, the Glue on observable list extends the JavaFX observable list, so that means that all UI components can indicate interest in changes. If something in the list changes, it can be rendered immediately on the screen. You don't have to do all the boilerplate code there. And we call the Glue on Connect APIs. We will call data provider.retrieve list. Where does the data have to come from? Well, from this Glue on client. We specify read-through and write-through flags for everything, which means if I change something, it will be changed in the backend as well. And if the backend changes, my local data should change as well. Glue on Cloud Link comes with a small application cloud, the Glue on Cloud Link dashboard, where you can add connectors for your specific application. For example, if I want to add a Couchbase connector, I give some additional information about where does the host live and what's the name and the password, and so. If we do the rest, so we'll first connect our applications with Glue on Cloud Link and then talk to a remote REST application. Very briefly, this is how such a REST application backend could look like. It's a typical REST endpoint where if we are called with get list, list identifier, and then some identifier, that we will return a list. Note that we have here something like node service.findAll, so that's your business logic. Maybe you already have such a backend because your website might be using the same thing. This is returning a JSON, and that's what Glue on Cloud Link can talk with your existing backend application. If we run this, and I will, I think that I don't need this cable anymore, so I can connect the other cable. No, that was the right cable. So it means that I will have to switch a few times, but that's okay. So this is the Nodes REST application. It has one node, an ugly one. I add a new node here, hello DevOps, and comment, OK, and I submit one. You see we have now two nodes here. If we now go back to the if we now go to the backend of this application, we have here, if we have internet, yeah, we have, this is our REST application that I showed, and it has a non-secure backend, so you can, with this REST path, you can see the content. You see that the hello devox OK that I just added has been added to this backend application. So that's real time. If I had both at the same moment, I would delete this one. Well, you know, well, for the ones that are sitting in the front, I can click on delete. So I delete the latest node. I click on refresh, and someone told me that Command R is refreshing, and you see that it got refreshed. So that's how you change something on the iPad in your mobile application. You saw a simple application, and it immediately is changing your backend application. So we can do very similar with Couchbase. So with the NoSQL storage, what we do there is we have the Couchbase connector, which will connect to a Couchbase bucket. And if you retrieve the list, it will ask Couchbase, give me all the items in this bucket. If you add an item, it will be added to the Couchbase bucket. Actually, well, it's not taking too long to switch. So I will launch the Couchbase mobile application here. There are no nodes at the moment, which worries me a bit because I thought that I entered something. I will give it a dummy title and some dummy content. I submit the node, and I will now switch excuse me, to the Couchbase admin console. To the Couchbase admin console, which I have here, and they pre-entered my credentials. I have to go to data buckets. Yeah, and this is the node that I just created. Can I edit this? Can I see this? Yeah. So this is CB test and dummy. So this is the one that I just created. Again, for the people in the front, I will delete the node. I'm also deleting it for the people in the back, but they can't see it. And I use the Command R shortcut, and the node is gone. So that's Couchbase. Then the next thing, the next integration, Cloud Foundry. In case you have an application running on a Cloud Foundry, and you want a mobile component of the application, you already have a nice website. It's the same concept. Well, no, the concept is a bit differently, because here we're working on a Cloud Foundry service that you can use and that you can then integrate in your Cloud Foundry application. And your data, and the data from your mobile device is then synced with the data that you use in your Cloud Foundry application. So this works like any other Cloud Foundry application. We have another demo for this. I'm getting out of breath with all this switching. Now I think, does this work for the recording? Well, we'll see later. So this is the Nodes application, but now with so it's the same code. The only thing that changes is we go to the Gluon CloudLink dashboard, and we select a different connector. So here we connect to the Nodes application to a running instance at Cloud Foundry. And we will add another node, Cloud Foundry test. And the comment is from mobile, for example. And we submit it. And as you can guess, we go now to the Cloud Foundry backend. Well, it's an application that we have in Cloud Foundry, and that also similar to the REST application that shows the content. So this is our very simple Cloud Foundry application, and it shows CF test from mobile. So whoa, that's all three demos worked. That's actually amazing. So people will probably think that this is a screenshot, just screenshots. But I wouldn't be able to do screenshots like this. So, okay, so this should hopefully convince you that Java Mobile works well in the enterprise world. Well, at least that it is possible to create Java mobile applications that connect to your existing enterprise applications. And the advantage is you don't have to know iOS or Android development. You can program in Java, and you can use the same ideas, the same model, the same concept, the same language, and have the application on mobile. And that's really a time saver and also maintenance saver. You don't need to maintain an iOS repository for keeping your application. And still your application looks like a native application. I mean, this Notes application is really a dummy application, but even that looks like it integrates very well with the native operating system. So, Java, as I said in the beginning, we're using Harmony, which is long deprecated. It used to be, I have to, where did I send it last time? Here or so? Yeah, okay. Oh, now it's here. So Harmony is a Java 6.7 implementation, but it's not being continued anymore. So RoboVM is using Harmony to compile your Java application to a native iOS application, well, to LLVM bytecode. But RoboVM is also not continued anymore. RoboVM is a company that created an AOT compiler, got bought by Xamarin, got bought by Microsoft, was killed. So that's an issue, of course. But now there are two very important things that we want to announce. So first of all, and that's, well, Google spoiled the announcement because they announced it themselves. Android N, which is the next version of Android, so we're currently at Marshmallow. Android N is not going to use Harmony anymore, but OpenJDK. So that means that on the next generation of Android, well, the next release of Android, which is scheduled later this year, it will contain OpenJDK implementations, which means that you can use Java 8 APIs and streams there. This is already working on Android devices. I have a Nexus 6 here that is using the preview of Android N, and I have an application created with Glue on Mobile that is using that is running on top of Android N. So you see here 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and now it's going to go back 8, so the ones that are in the front can see this application. I will very briefly show the code for this application. And yeah, here it is. This application is using streams. So it's a stream 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then it uses a JavaFX keyframe to display it for 1 second, and then it's going to render the next one. So this is an application. I didn't want to have the hassle of converting it from laptop to mobile device, but this shows that you can use streams on Android. It's in our preview as well, but it's definitely something that's coming. So Java 8 on Android covered. Now that's fine, but what about iOS? I think we have something even more interesting to announce here, and that is that we are working on the Glue on VM, which is a virtual machine that is part of the Glue on Labs, where we start things that we think are interesting. And the Glue on VM leverages OpenJDK. So Harmony is dead. We're not going to continue with Harmony anymore. We are not going to continue with RoboVM anymore. But we're using OpenJDK 9, and the Glue on VM. And I think it's very important that we align with OpenJDK, because this is really where the effort is. This is really where the Java specifications are created. And we're working very closely with the OpenJDK Mobile project, in case you know that, because very clever engineers there are bringing the Java 9 APIs to iOS and Android. And we're working, we're using this OpenJDK 9 implementation, and we are using it for converting the Java client applications onto mobile devices. So that also means that there are no external dependencies. We only depend on OpenJDK. We don't depend on RoboVM or on Harmony. We got lots of questions after RoboVM was killed about, does this affect Gluon? Well, RoboVM contained much more code than only the AOT, and the VM actually it contains an interface builder and other great stuff that we never used. But most important is we now have our own VM that we will release in the future. But the path for the future is very clear. It's OpenJDK. It's a single source of the Java specification, and we are adapting it. So thanks for attending. Time's up, but if there's a quick question, I can take it. Yes?
How do you interact with the device hardware, like GPS?
Yeah, good question. So the question is, how do you interact with device hardware, for example, the GPS? One of the sub-projects of Gluon Mobile is Charm Down. It's an open source project. It's and it contains an abstraction over things like, for example, the GPS. So we have a high-level API that asks platform.get location service, and that will give you access to the location API. It contains an iOS implementation and an Android implementation. It's developed in open source. We are a big contributor to that project, but others are contributing as well. And that's how we interact with this. GPS is one thing, media APIs or other things. So access to the camera and a barcode reader, and so is also done in that library. Yes?
How do we find out that which version of Android or iOS it will, which is the minimum SDK for which it will run?
Yeah, well, we typically say KitKat, so Android 4.4 is that is supported. Versions below KitKat are often work as well, but not all APIs are guaranteed to work there. For performance reasons, we do recommend any system that's using ART, so the runtime that became standard in 5.0, because there were some optimizations that are really, really very important for running JavaFX there. But it will run on all devices, but it might run slow on all devices. But on Lollipop, performance should be good. Keep in mind, though, and that's something very important, that it's easy to make an application with a bad performance. And JavaFX allows for lots of configurations and options and tuning. And you can also, with some wrong tuning, it will be slow. So that's why in Gluon Mobile we try to pre-configure and pre-tune the controls so that they behave very fast. Yes?
I was going to ask, have you hit any problems with mobile vendor platforms and the rules about running virtual machines on top of platforms? Like traditionally, iOS, for example, they didn't want Flash because they didn't want any kind of virtual machine running on the platform.
Yes, yeah, that we don't have problems there because we don't run Java on the device. That's where we have the AOT compiler for. So you don't need to pre-install Java on the device. If it was possible, it wouldn't even work. But no. And on iOS, we are not using a dynamic. Well, we're not using something like Hotspot, so not the just-in-time interpreter. It's running an ahead of time. So the code is translated ahead of time to native Objective-C code, to native iOS code, and there it behaves like any other application. So there are apps created with Gluon Mobile in the App Store, and they were all approved by Apple. So. Not a problem. Yes?
Do you have a very quick demo of the 3D stuff on your iPad?
Yes. Yeah. 3D works on. Okay, and then I think we'll conclude this. If there are more questions about it, then I will happily answer them. But thanks for attending, and visit the website.